The reason that we were involved in this project is that we had done some work for Sam in Evanston. He has had a fairly large house on Forest. He's since sold the house, but there was a whole kitchen, family room area that he wanted to be redone, and he was very happy with our work. So that it was only a year or two later he purchased this land and asked us to be involved. So I drove down to take a look at it, and it was it was pretty decrepit. This house actually was built, we think, in the 1880s for the. It was a shooting club outside from Chicago. There were reports that the sky would be dark with birds. There would be so many of them. And we actually saw some photographs from the 1880s and 1890s where they would mount 4 or 5 shotguns on the front of these little boats that they would go out in the marshes on. And when the birds would get frightened and take off, they just like fire them all at one time. It was there'd be 20, 30 birds that would fall at once. And they collect them and bring them back and fill up these oak barrels with dead birds and take them back to Chicago. And it's my understanding at the time the only way to get here was from the rail. There was no roads into this land at all. So they'd come down and park a car and spend the weekend shooting and take back their birds. And also I remember reading somewhere that they were delivered to restaurants and stuff in Chicago too at the time. But all of this land in this part of Indiana was once a marsh. In Wisconsin we have the Horicon Marsh, but this, which is a stopover for birds migrating north and south. And this part of Indiana was it was even bigger and more famous. So there was good reason to put this club here. I looked up some things on the internet not too long ago, and there was all these reports about rare birds that they would find and would get published in magazines at the time. But this was a very busy, exclusive club for Chicago, primarily, I think, businessmen that would come down and shoot and probably drink and smoke cigars.
Got it.
On the weekends.
And I've heard rumors of Al Capone and his men being here.
Yes, but I think it was pointed out that every old house in Indiana probably has rumors of Al Capone being there. But we did find remains of a still in the woods. So something was going on here that was illegal, probably.
So, John, what was your vision when you first saw the property?
So when we first drove up, the house was here. It was completely open. It had been built on wooden piles, which, considering that this was mostly marshland, was probably the only way you could put a foundation in for a building. And they're very stable over time as long as the water level stays in the same place. But it definitely needed a foundation. And we decided that we were going to have to put a new foundation under the building. So we thought, why not move the building closer to the water, since we have to lift it up anyway. So he came down. He has these huge hydraulic jacks. He showed us. First of all, we took everything out of the house that we didn't want to keep, so the building would be as light as possible. And he jacked it up, and he has these tires like underneath airplanes. And he pulls the house over, and we had the concrete foundation all prepared, so he just set it on the concrete foundation. It was pretty fascinating. We did a very kind of thorough analysis of the house. Anything that was historic or original that was noteworthy, we kept, and then some of the other areas, primarily upstairs, to put in new bedrooms and new bathrooms to make it more, in line with the way people live these days.
It's a great family retreat.
It is. What did we do? There's 4 bedrooms on the 3rd floor, 3 on the 2nd, including a master over the living room. And then we also took what was the room that we're in was actually part of the back porch. And we enclosed it with these glass panels so that when people would be having dinner, you'd be feeling like you're partially outside. And put the kitchen back where it was, I think, in the original plan. And a powder room and extra storage on the first floor. So it's a very comfortable place to spend a weekend, or longer, if you like. When we first came here, we found 2 hatches on the roof. And it may have been that they were opened in the evenings to get fresh air through the house, but we also thought that they might actually be able to go hunting from the house without ever leaving the inside of the house. But we did not keep those, but we did manage to work out. They're basically kind of dorm rooms upstairs. There's 2 on each side of the 3rd floor with a shared bath. And then Sam's family was primarily on the 2nd floor. There's 2 kids' bedrooms and a master bedroom on the south, with dressing and full bath for the master. And then on the ground floor, there's the living, primary eating area and kitchen, and the main hall. The interesting thing that we did keep on the 2nd floor, just because we thought it was such a part of the house, is there's a whole line of wooden cabinet lockers. So when people would come and stay at the hunting club, they had a place to keep their boots and their gun and close it. And I think there's little locks on them too, so that they could store all the material here for the weekends.
And
so those remain. Yeah.
You did an amazing restoration.
We never figured out who the architect was for this house. We've speculated that it might have been Daniel Burnham just because of the way it was designed. But it was originally designed as a club for hunting. Chicago people would get on the train, they would come down, and I don't know if we heard rumors that the car would be parked in front of the building, and then they would come and spend the weekend. All in their white shirts, and I really don't know how long it remained a gun club. The fireplace that's there now is the original fireplace, but what's not original is everything from 2 bricks back and up.
Okay.
So it's now sized properly to draw well, and it works very well. And we're going to have a place to store the equipment and take a shower. So that kind of enlarged into a place for a pool table. But he got it, and it's there, as well as a very large collection of African taxidermy is what I guess we could call it. And there's a nice bar and a kitchen in there. So it's a great little, it was one of the original man caves, I guess, except it's very bright, so we can't really call it a cave. And then there is another building here that was originally built as the caretaker's house for the gun club. And it was run down as well. So Sam wanted to have the ability to have a whole family come down and stay here in a separate building. So we rehabbed that building, and that was the last. So there's a total of 4 buildings that are on the property. I think the acreage is about 35. And the other thing which Sam, we had to work very hard on this, and it was very complicated. The Kankakee River at this portion is all controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. And we very much wanted to bring water as a feature here. I think Sam called it the swimming hole. He really wanted that to be part of the whole grouping. So there was a lot of legal work that had to go back and forth with the Army Corps of Engineers in order to provide water from the river to come into the land. But it's worked out pretty well. So there's a place to go swimming, and it's even stocked with fish. So there's a bunch of fishing rods in the garage, I saw.
And there's an aerator
in
the pond as well.
So you can bring your own fish and catch them years later.
I found it very interesting that the pool table that is in the house adjacent to the paddle tennis court had been in pieces on the 2nd floor.
Yeah,
Were you involved in recreating?
No, that was all Sam. I didn't even realize that that's what had happened. But it would make sense that a weekend retreat would have a pool table, I guess, for evening entertainment. It's wonderful that he would keep that. He was very insistent with us. We were talking about the hardware, for example, and all the doors, and he asked if we could get that fixed, and it didn't even occur to us at the time, but we took it all to Chicago, had it all cleaned and put back together again. So all the door hardware and everything is the original stuff in the 1880s.
So, John, tell me a little bit about Sam, the owner of the property.
Sam, I think business was his second degree. At first, he was so interested in history and architecture. I thought his first degree must have been history, but it's some related field that escapes me. But he has he's passionate about old buildings and history, and so this house was a perfect match for a man of his interests.